They don't appear in written language. They just do not appear in written language unless, except it's a dialogue in a novel or something like that. Because what are question tags doing? They're kind of involving the person who's listening. They're asking you to confirm. Yeah, they're seldom real questions. They're just simply appealing to the other listener to agree. But that's really spooky, isn't it? You would feel very spooked, wouldn't you? And they typically have a falling intonation rather than. So those are other features of what I call interpersonality. What else? Now, features. Oh yeah, and then appeals to shared knowledge. So she has absolutely no idea. You know who it was. So I'm appealing to you. I'm acknowledging that you probably. Yeah, you do. I'm not going to insult you, your intelligence, but so I'm drawing you into the story, or I'm appealing to my shared knowledge. I mean someone out there with a tarpaulin. I'm two ways, of very, very common ways of recognizing the listener's knowledge or my particular knowledge. Evaluative language. Evaluative language is very common. Strongly evaluative language is in spoken language. You hear teenagers all the time talking about, "I was awesome." Yeah, there's it's interesting actually, these two conversations, which are both about a very extreme climatic incident. There's actually not a lot of evaluative language, and I wonder if that's because it's not needed, because it's such a. But they do say this really spooky. You would feel very spooked. That's a fairly strong. Do you know what spooky means?
Spooky,
scary. Scary, exactly. So you'll find a lot of that often in transcripts of spoken language. Features of contingency include things like, now remember, contingency is connectedness. So language which is connected to the context, the immediate physical context, and language which is internally cohesive. Let's look at examples. Now this is another conversation. This is a conversation with the father and his daughter are doing something, they're making something together. There's what's sometimes called language and action. And notice a lot of this language you don't know what they're referring to because you're not there. Yeah? It's contextually specific language. Look at, I fixed this. You did? Yes, thank you, Dad. No worries, Dad. You did, you're doing this, etc., etc., etc. Reference to the other people in the conversation, or other things in the room, or the particular time that's taking place. Language which is called deictic. Deictic, yeah, from the Greek word for a finger, because it's pointing. It's pointing this, that, the other, and so on. All languages have it, but they have it in different ways. As you well know, some languages have a three-way deictic pattern, here, there, and over there. Others, this, that, and the other one. English more typically is a two-way direction. And you can see how this pans out in how the proportion of nouns versus pronouns in spoken language. So this is from the British National Corpus, the Longman Grammar of Spoken Written English. This is conversation. So these are the nouns, the proportion of nouns to pronouns. You see it's almost 50-50. Lots of pronouns in spoken language, we're referring to he, she, it, or we're referring to things that have already been mentioned and they're understood. And notice that other genres like fiction or news or academic writing, there's many, many, many fewer pronouns. So one thing we need to perhaps teach when we're teaching people spoken language is to focus on pronouns. Okay, how are we going? And then, yes. And then the way that the connections between previous utterances are signaled, the little traffic lights in conversation where we show how this utterance, what we're going to say, connects to that last utterance, or which way the conversation is going. So when we say something like, no, I think, now we don't know what somebody had said before Odile, but she's kind of, in a sense, contradicting slightly. Well, no, I don't know. And then Odile says, and she don't know, and she says, well, you know, so well is the sort of qualification. I don't. Yes, I want to make a slight change of direction. I'm not going to contradict you, but we're going in a slightly different direction. And then we've seen Rob O already for surprise and so on. So we've got these so-called discourse markers, or sometimes called pragmatic markers, which signal the direction that the discourse is going. And we see in the same database that I showed you before, these are called inserts, because they're inserted at the beginning, typically, although they come, and this is shows how common they are in American English, which is the dark shaded, and British English. There's a slight difference that in British English, in 1999 when it was done, we said yes more often than Americans did, but they say yeah more often than Brits did. Surprise, surprise. And so these are some of the kinds of, and this doesn't include not only discourse markers, it also includes fillers and so on. So we have